Kia ora. I'll just start us off with a karakia to bring us all into the space today. Thank you very much for joining us. Feel free to join along wherever you are. Me karakia tātou. Tu tara mai I runga, tu tara mai I raro, tu tara mai I waho, tu tara mai I roto. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa. Homi e, hui e, tai ki e.
Kia ora tātou and welcome. I'm Rod Oram, and it's my great pleasure to be your MC this morning for this presentation of the 4th Annual Insights Report on New Zealand Sustainability Professionals, produced by Oxygen Consulting. As in previous reports, there's a great wealth of knowledge and insights in this latest report, and therefore it's a great pleasure to welcome Sarah Holden from Oxygen Consulting to take us through the main points of it. So Sarah, great to have you with us, and over to you.
Thank you, Rod. Tēnā koutou katoa. It's a real pleasure to be with you today to launch our 4th Annual Insights on New Zealand Sustainability Professionals Report. Right. Okay, before we get going, I just want to make a few acknowledgements. As always, there is an incredible army of people who collaborate on this project, notwithstanding all the people listed there. Special thanks to our partners, AUT, Sustainable Business Council and Sustainable Business Network, and also to the 236 New Zealand sustainability professionals who participate in this research. That is a record for us this year in terms of response, and really, really pleased because it does enable us to get really statistically relevant information for you for this research. I also want to acknowledge in particular Megan Dunyan, who undertook all of the analysis for this research, and also Kelly Flats, who was incredible at managing that collaborative partnership and projects. So thank you to you both. You did an amazing job. Okay, before we crack into the report itself, I want to touch on the perfect storm that is already providing a choke point on the organisational sustainability front, as this provides a context for some of the key findings in this report. There are 3 elements to this storm that I want to identify. First up, there are a plethora of technical standards, guidelines, and regulatory requirements wrapped around sustainability now. These have accelerated in the past few years at lightning speed. 20 years ago, when I started out my career in sustainability, I think I could probably count on my hand the various standards that were used, and there was a lot of inconsistency with what good looked like. Now there is an alphabet soup of standards, and it's fairly challenging to keep pace with them all, let alone organisations making sense of which ones are most relevant to them. And with legal scrutiny on sustainability on the rise, it's important that organisations can demonstrate they are using these standards appropriately and not greenwashing. The second major element is that the market for sustainability is growing. This is driven from multiple angles. For example, investors and the financial services sector prioritising or incentivising ESG, as well as consumers growing awareness for the need for organisations to address environmental impacts, driving a voice for the planet, and choosing to divest in unethical practices. As more and more organisations address sustainability, competitors fall in behind or risk being left behind. Subsequently, sustainability roles, or also called green jobs, are more in demand than ever before. In fact, LinkedIn's 2023 Global Green Skills Report, published only 2 weeks ago, revealed that while green job postings are up by 15.2% year on year, demand for talent is outstripping supply. Globally, green jobs postings grew nearly twice as fast as the share of green talent between 2022 and 2023, with sustainability analyst sustainability specialist, and sustainability manager among the 10 fastest growing roles on LinkedIn between 2018 and 2022. So we have a perfect storm brewing, with more pressure than ever for companies to take sustainability seriously and a shortage of skilled professionals available to help them do so. Understanding the different types of sustainability roles required is therefore critical to shaping professional development pathways so that we may boost both the capacity and capability for organisational sustainability. So our 2023 Sustainability Professionals research feels more relevant than ever. This year, we have sought to provide more granular insights and a more nuanced appreciation for the different types of sustainability roles that are out there, with the aim of developing more meaningful insights for the different users of this information. We're aware that many sustainability professionals use this report to benchmark their salaries. Organisations are using the findings to specify the right roles to meet their sustainability requirements, and students are drawing on the insights to understand career pathways into the profession. We benchmark 3 role types. The general sustainability professional, so this is someone that leads the strategic direction, facilitates coordination and implementation of the organisational sustainability agenda. The specialist sustainability professional delivers specialist expertise on specific technical or specialist aspects of sustainability. And the additional sustainability professional, whose core role is in another part of the business, but has some sustainability responsibilities. We compare the remuneration, demographics, competencies, responsibilities, and educational background of professionals working in each of these role types and the industries employing them. We also look at the longitudinal trends at an aggregate level, comparing 4 years of this research across 3 areas: remuneration, capability and professional development, and well-being and job satisfaction. Now, I haven't covered all of these insights in today's launch, but the full report is available on our website to download if you wish to explore these further. Of the 236 New Zealand sustainability professionals surveyed in this research, we had pretty good representation across the 3 role types, with 44% general, 33% specialist, and 24% additional roles. So in terms of who's working in these roles, across all role types, females dominate the sustainability profession, on average making up 65% of the profession. These are mostly people identifying as European. There is a lack of ethnic diversity, particularly Māori representation, making up only 1% of sustainability professionals, compared with 17% in the New Zealand population. Most sustainability professionals are in the 25 to 45-year-old age bracket. Young sustainability professionals are likely to be in specialist roles, with 55% under the age of 35. The organisations employing sustainability professionals are mostly large organisations in the private sector. In terms of the key industries employing sustainability professionals, agriculture, forestry and fisheries are the largest employers of general and additional roles, followed by electricity, gas, water and waste services. Management consulting, engineering and public administration and safety are the largest employers of specialist roles, and a large proportion of additional roles are also employed in management consulting, while the financial services sector is the second largest employer of general roles. While there is a reasonable spread of different role types across different management levels, specialists are more prevalent in early career roles, whereas generals are mostly working in mid to senior level positions. In terms of division or business unit location of these roles, we see general roles predominantly found in sustainability, corporate responsibility, strategy, and corporate affairs and external affairs. Specialist roles are located in sustainability and corporate responsibility, sustainability consulting, and environment, while additional roles are mostly found in marketing and communications, HR and people, and finance. Our sustainability professionals are well educated, with 97% holding a tertiary qualification. These are likely to be either a bachelor or master's degree in either business or commerce, science, or arts, humanities, and social science. Sustainability degrees are more likely to be held by generals, and business and commerce qualifications are more likely to be held by additionals. Median remuneration varies across different role types, with junior specialist roles generally paid more than junior, general, or additional roles, whereas in more senior positions, general and additional roles are higher paid. General and additional roles have a 25% gender pay gap, whereas there is no gender pay gap with specialist roles. When we dig into this further, we find that while there are significant discrepancies in pay between males and females within role typologies, at an aggregate level, the mean pay gap across all roles is 9%, and this is down from 10% in 2022. While this is consistent with New Zealand's national gender pay gap, gender pay as a focal topic within organisational sustainability, the sustainability profession should strive to become exemplary in demonstrating equal pay. We encourage general and additional sustainability professionals and their organisations to use the role-specific breakdown of remuneration data in this report to help close the pay gap in these roles. Moving into overall remuneration, mean remuneration across all roles sits at $134,500, with generals and additionals seeing the upper end of this, balanced out by specialists at the lower end. However, we do know that within our sample group, the bulk of our specialists are in early career roles, whereas generals are largely in more senior roles and additionals are spread across all management levels. So this may explain the different mean and median remuneration results across these three groups. Mean remuneration increased 1.4% annually, with an average increase across all roles of $2,000, but this is still below the mean national pay increase of 5.8% for the same period. However, since we started this research in 2020, the mean remuneration of sustainability professionals has increased by 17%. When we break this down across management levels, there is good news for sustainability professionals in senior management roles. Remuneration levels saw a decent uptick for those in senior manager, head of, and GM positions. This is consistent with the demand for these roles by organisations in the past year and the squeeze on supply, meaning those who are skilled and experienced are in a better position to negotiate higher salaries. In 2023, the median GM CSO exec sustainability role is $239,000. Head of roles are on $179,500, and senior managers are earning $159,500. Not all bad news for junior and mid-career roles, however, with the exception of junior consultant and junior advisor positions, which took a $1,000 haircut in the past year. All other roles have retained a steady or increasing remuneration rate since 2020. In 2023, the median manager role remuneration is $119,500. Consultants and advisors earn $99,500. Junior consultants and junior advisors are on $69,500, and the median graduate sustainability role remuneration is $59,500. And noting that these are median results, so when participants respond to this question, they are asked to select their salary within a 20K band. So we have indicated these bandwidths using the error bars on the chart. All in all, it's great to see a laddering of remuneration across different management levels, creating clear financial succession pathways for sustainability professionals. And although it appears that junior roles may have remained static, 72% of all sustainability professionals reported having a pay increase in the past 12 months. This may indicate a pay increase achieved within the same role, so still sitting within that same remuneration band in our chart on the previous slide, or it could indicate movement into a new role, as only 1/3 of participants have been in their role for less than a year. Moving into capability and development. While most sustainability professionals generally feel confident in their ability, only 41% feel completely competent in their role. There was no material difference across gender, but those in additional roles are the least confident. And maybe it's because of the availability of appropriate professional sustainability training. Overall, we find that fewer than 40% have undertaken professional training in the past 12 months. And for those who have sought training, this has been through workshops and courses rather than formal accreditations, certifications, or tertiary qualifications. And learning on the job is by far and away the main method of capability development for all role types. Across the board, additional role types are making less use of most modes of development than specialists and generals, although this may reflect the fact that sustainability isn't the main focus of the additional roles. Taking all of this into account, it's not surprising that on average, only 52% think that their current capability development is enough for their role requirements. In terms of accessing the profession, there is a lack of clear educational pathways leading into sustainability. While most sustainability professionals broadly agree that a tertiary qualification is necessary to support any sustainability role, the jury is out on what type of qualification would be best, with 1/3 of everyone suggesting any option could work, whether that is a specific or sustainability tertiary qualification, any tertiary qualification, or a sustainability professional accreditation. Generals feel more strongly about this than all other role types, whereas additionals feel more strongly that any tertiary qualification would be suitable. So, reflecting back to our perfect storm, in addition to sustainability standards moving at warp speed, increasing market demand and scrutiny, and the shortage of skilled professionals, this research has identified a fourth key factor which will create a further choke point if not addressed. That is the lack of professional training to support sustainability capability development. While some educational institutions and professional bodies have certainly sought to establish degrees and certifications, we don't yet have the equivalent of passing the bar or a chartered accountant professional qualification in New Zealand, or even indeed internationally. But this should definitely be a consideration in future to further support sustainability professionals and their organisation's ability to address sustainability consistently and effectively. So what can we do about it? Some key takeouts and suggestions for users of this report. Organisations can use the role-specific data to specify and support sustainability positions and address issues such as gender pay gap. There is rich data in this report on several different types of sustainability roles, and we would encourage you to consider not an either or when thinking about whether you need a general, specialist or additional, but moreover, what combination of all of these roles do you need to successfully build both capacity and capability in addressing sustainability? For the professional development and educational sector, what are the opportunities to collaborate and improve the quality and availability of training and professional development for sustainability professionals? Is there an opportunity to develop a standardised professional qualification that would provide a recognised industry benchmark accreditation for the sustainability profession? And sustainability professionals, you're in the best position to identify and be vocal about the professional development that you need to support you in your role, and to advocate the embedding of sustainability capability in everyone's role. Building sustainability capacity through additional roles may indeed be the fastest way for organisations to ensure they're meeting their increasing sustainability requirements And it also creates a new avenue to grow and develop existing talent within an organisation. So while the solutions to help organisations address sustainability at the pace and scale necessary to rebalance our planet are complex, we hope that our 2023 research promotes further discussion on the opportunity to uplift our professional capability to ensure we can build the required capacity. And of course, as always, we welcome your feedback on our research and hope that it supports you on your sustainability journey. Ngā mihi nui kia koe. Please find the full report here.
So thank you very much indeed, Sarah, for another superb report full of great insights and analysis. And you and your colleagues just go from strength to strength with each report. And in due course, I'm going to introduce the three partners who are going to turn up on our panel to discuss this. But I just want to say one thing about the framing of our panel discussion is that the urgency with which we're exploring these issues has never been greater. And it's not just the climate crisis itself or other manifestations of our unsustainability are sending us urgent signals about that. But it also comes at a time of a turbulent and weaker economy. And so companies are having to make decisions about where to focus those efforts. So that's why it's a great pleasure to have a panel with us. And the members are from the three supporting organisations. First of all, Rachel Brown, who's CEO of the Sustainable Business Network. Secondly, Mike Burrell, Executive Director of the Sustainable Business Council. And thirdly, Marjo Lips-Wiersma, who is Professor of Ethics and Sustainability Leadership at AUT. And then a senior and well-known sustainability practitioner, Kate van Praagh, General Manager of Sustainability at Genesis Energy. So Mike, if I may first turn to you, why should business be concerned by these latest findings? And what's the best roles they can play in bridging some of the gaps that Sarah's report has identified?
Thanks, Rod. And can I just echo what you said earlier about the fundamental importance of this research? You can see by all the people who are involved in it that we all take it very seriously, and yet another great report. Look, I suppose three different areas that I'd be concerned about. The first is the gender pay gap. Seeing that in a profession like ours is really unacceptable. I think that one of the messages I wanted to deliver today is that yes, we have a majority of those positions being held by women, but the fact that women are being paid less for those roles, particularly those some of those senior roles, is outrageous, frankly. So I think action on that is really, really critical. The second thing I'd say is the ethnicity pay gap, particularly Māori and Pacifica peoples, again, is real concern. Those stats are just appalling. And obviously, we as a sustainability professional are not doing enough to make ourselves interesting and dynamic and attractive enough to attract talent from Māori and Pacifica people. So I think we need to really work on that. And certainly I've been looking at what SBN has been doing over the last 3 years in this space, and it's something that has inspired us in SBC to follow a similar path, which is really to get into the fundamentals of why it is that Māori and Pacifica are not attracted to our profession and look at that. And the third thing that worries me about this is if I look at the issue around the skills gap and not investing in people professionally, that really worries me. At a time when you see the demand that Sarah laid out before becoming greater and greater, it's exactly at a time when we're hitting a small blip in terms of a recession, and we're not investing in our people. I mean, the signal that Marjo will talk about in a minute around what can happen in the tertiary education sector is one thing, but also there's the fact that we need to be investing in our people right now within our companies. So I take that as a signal to us to do more in all three of those areas that Sarah has outlined earlier. That is the general, into the specialists, and across into the supporting as well. So those are some really, I think, key areas that certainly we in SBC will be taking very seriously. We always read these very closely. And I suppose just one last thing from me, Rod, is that based on last year's one, the SBC board included capacity building as a key priority for us in the upcoming year, because we've recognised just how important this is. If we don't grow our own and invest in the people in the profession, invest in people and give them the pathways, then we won't retain them, and we won't have the capacity that we need.
Thank you very much indeed, Mike, for that. We will be coming back to some of the points, I hope, in due course in this discussion. Now, we have almost half an hour for this discussion, and we're very, very keen, pleased, to get your questions from all of those of you who are online. So please do use the Q&A function you see at the bottom of your Zoom screen to send those questions into us. So secondly, Rachel, the research shows this lack of ethnic diversity is a real challenge. Are there some suggestions you'd like to make about how we can make our workplaces more inclusive and diverse, particularly from this sustainability angle?
Yeah. I mean, thanks, Mike, for acknowledging us, and kia ora, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I love this research. I find it extremely useful and informative for the whole sector. So, Sarah, good mahi, babe. Great. First of all, I think I think we're constantly making mistakes in this space, Rod. I think we recognise the way we've been doing business isn't responding to the urgency that's coming at us, and it's screaming at us right now with climate. You know, whales are attacking boats, which is a new thing. Nature's screaming at us and telling us the way we're doing things is wrong. There's just signals all over the place. And the way that we're trying to adjust or develop or respond to this stuff is just not at the scale it needs to be delivered at. And until we really start recognising the value of diverse communities, culturally diverse, rainbow communities, neurodiverse, you know, this skill set of embracing this diverse way of thinking is the way that we have to respond. But specifically, if we look at Māori, the most important thing that we need to think about is what's the culture of our own organisations as we put targets around, you know, having X percentage of people in our staff, for big organisations particularly, in the organisation, when the organisations are not really kind to this community that we're trying to embrace in. So I'd say one of the first things we have to do is lift our own cultural competency to make sure that when we have Māori and Pacific communities, or any ethnic diversity, rainbow communities included, in our staff pool, we're actually creating safe, good places for them to be able to do a great job, but also influence the way that the business is done. So I'd say that's one thing we need to get better at. The other thing is, it's not just about the way that we operate with our staff, it's also the way that we connect and partner with others. So most organisations have partnerships. They have community partnerships, for example. Some of those partnerships are with iwi organisations, for example. But what's often done is it's used as an extractive relationship. So it's not thought about as a two-way learning relationship. And I think that's a massive gap and a lot of learning. We see this a lot with a lot of work we do in the nature space, Rod, when we're out there doing regeneration work. We're not, you know, a lot of our business community really just looking what's in it for me, not what's in it for the people that we're working with. So that's got to shift. And I think the third sort of easy way of us thinking about how do we build that cultural connection and diversity is through our supply chains. And at the moment, supply chains, we're kind of locking into adapting sustainability criteria and supplies, which is great. Part of that needs to also be making sure that we're making them culturally accessible. So diverse organisations, Māori Pacifica, for example, can actually get part of our supply chain so we can help their organisations grow too. So I'd say those are the ones that I think are really important that we're not doing very well right now.
Right, thank you, Rachel. There's a range of really excellent points there. So, excuse me, Marjo, turning to your role of you and your colleagues in education in universities, there's a very clear lack of a strong educational pathway identified in this report. So what are some of your thoughts about how to improve that through the offering of tertiary institutions like AUT?
Yeah, and how can that be supported by business and government, I think, because it's business, universities won't be able to do this by themselves. First of all, there's some good news. If you look at degree structures at the moment, like there's 3 recent environmental education, environmental engineering degrees that have popped up over the last year, 4 environmental law degrees. I could go on, interdisciplinary climate change degrees. So there is actually, things are happening. Universities are responding. It takes them a while. These programs need to be approved. We can't change programs. Students come in for one program and they don't want to change them halfway through. So there is a time lag, but there is a lot happening at the moment. So that is really good news, I think. Secondly, I think we as a whole, and that's where we need business and government as well, need to look at what are the priorities. If I was to say, what is my priority? Where do we need? If we were to appoint 4 to 5 professors leading a field in education and research and collaboration with business field, I'd say sustainable finance. We need a professor of sustainable finance somewhere. We need one of circular economy somewhere. We need one of data integration. We just don't have good sustainability data. And we need one of agricultural transition somewhere. What can businesses do? I think for the students, awards. Students across different universities don't connect with each other. It's your role to get them to connect, to having awards, to doing study tours, to sharing international speakers. Like, how do we get all of these people to connect with each other? Because that's where the innovation comes from, when they actually start talking to each other and get out of their individual bubbles. With regard to these professors, my wish list, we have some sponsored professors, but that is what's happening overseas. Overseas, the businesses, the larger businesses go, what knowledge do we need? How do we sponsor it? And it can be done in a way that academic integrity is not compromised and everybody gains from it. So that is definitely what we need. Finally, what I thought was interesting about the research, there's no clear pathway, and at the same time we see more and more specialization. And I think if we look at that data together, what we're, I think, seeing is that we need to change universities very fast, that we have a first year sustainability concept, system thinking, design thinking, what is sustainability actually for all students. But we do want those specialists because they're actually moving faster to the organization. Specialists become generalists, right? It's not that these groups that we have are not disconnected. And so we need that first year in every university. We don't want any university anymore. And I literally want to stress that does not have sustainability taught into every degree. Every degree needs sustainability in it. It's as simple as that. What can you do? You can be on university advisory boards, councils, talk outside in, put yourself in those positions. Secondly, we need, then sustainability minors in all degrees where those young people want to specialize. So you do an accountancy degree and you have a minor in accountancy reporting. You do an engineering degree, you have a minor in environmental engineering, because and with all degrees, you have the main specialization and the minor. That's what we need to do. The reason for that is because you really do not want a sustainability engineer who doesn't know calculus and doesn't have a passion for it and doesn't love it. So you still want these young people to bring their passion as well as their skills to their degrees. But in the first year, you want them to all think sustainability. And then how am I going to have that specialization together with my passion of sustainability? And that is what's going to move us much faster. So that is what needs to happen. What can you do? Again, get onto professional bodies, because one reason we don't have that accountancy thing that you just talked about is because all the professional bodies says, so what do we take out so that we can put sustainability in? So the whole mindset needs to change. We can't change that. Professional bodies need to change that. You all need to get on them and change this rapidly. You really do. Same with engineering, same with law. No longer that mindset of what do we need to take out. The mindset needs to be what is the foundation of the future of the world. It is sustainability. And from there on, you can start talking about what courses need to be in and out. So that's pretty much how I see things evolving if I was the Prime Minister.
You've thrown down an amazing challenge there for a radical reorganization of the tertiary system, which I'm personally very keen on, and I will come back to that. So, but thank you for that. And just a reminder to the audience, you've got some great questions coming through, and I'm just going to turn to them after our fourth and final panelist. And it's a great pleasure to welcome Kate van Praagh. Kate, from your point of view as a GM Sustainability at Genesis Energy, what do you think is on this question of professional development about how we might better meet the demand, given, as Sarah pointed out right at the beginning, the extraordinary explosion of demands on business on sustainability and the sheer complexity of that?
Kia ora, Rod, and kia ora, and thank you so much, Sarah, for this research. I'm just loving seeing it grow and deepen over the years and create this conversation, which I think is super important. And I just absolutely tautoko Marjo's points there. I think essential that sustainability is the basis of all future education. I guess the thing that worries me is that you know, coming back to your question, Rod, is the speed with which we need to deliver this. And I think the value in splitting the role types out in this year's research is really, really important, because I think it shows the movement from companies doing sustainability in a sustainability team, you know, in the corner of the office, to an organization being sustainable. And how do you do that? You need it to be part of everyone's role. So I think that's the way we need to think. And I think if you look at, for example, the climate disclosures regime, you know, we need upskilling across the whole organization. So from the board to the exec to people who manage climate risk on a day-to-day basis, you know, so for us, for example, that would be at our generation schemes. You know, you need all of these people to come back to Marjo's point. You know, you need engineers to know engineering and what they're doing, but you also need them to think about it from a climate lens. You know, what's going to be happening in a changing world and how that's going to impact on the business. So I think, you know, that capability building and the speed and pace of it needs to happen. And, you know, perhaps some kind of accreditation could be useful to upskill people across the board. I think for me, it really needs to be an integration of breaking down siloed thinking. So moving away from just climate education to coming back to some of your points, Rachel and Mike, you know, how are we thinking about people at the center, you know, of a just transition? How are we thinking about nature in relation to climate, in relation to people? So to me, that's a really, you know, a bit of a missing piece. There's all these separate kind of learning experiences, but there's nothing really holistic at an organizational upskilling, professional learning and development point of view.
Fine. Thank you very much indeed, Kate. And in fact, if I may ask a general question of all of four of you panelists, would you like to name any organization that you know in New Zealand that offers those sustainability fundamentals to everybody in the organization, and whether or not that sort of blanket coverage is able to be managed by the sustainability professionals within the company, or whether there are some external sources that people could turn to if they want to give that real grounding to a whole organization. And who are the heroes out there? Any takers on that? I'll start with Mike, perhaps.
Thanks, Rod. Look, I won't go into the specifics of the companies because it's we're just about to publish something that will reveal some of this stuff, and I don't want to give that away. But what I would say is that increasingly companies are doing what Kate is talking about, which is looking at this through coming back to the holistic element. I think that's where sustainability professionals start. They start from a holistic perspective, but then of course priorities come along, and you know, and whether that's the climate emergency or whether that's the equity emergency that we're now entering now and the nature emergency, that will shift where their priorities are, and I appreciate that. But what we are seeing, and it's particularly with those that have a little bit more baseline to deal with, have got a bit of a bit more revenue, who can afford to actually, do more than one priority area. We're beginning to see that holistic element come back in again, and you'll see it turning up in people's sustainability strategies, particularly seeing it in the social sustainability space, where internationally and domestically, companies in New Zealand and overseas are very worried about what's happening to social fabric, and the fact that yes, there's been a massive impact of COVID on the economy, but so too on society. And so I think you're going to see that is going to be a big priority, certainly for our members in the upcoming years. One thing I would say in terms of the heroes is that there's still a tendency for what my predecessor used to refer to as green hush. I think companies are so concerned about being portrayed as greenwashing, they're a little careful about when they celebrate their successes. And what we always say is, as long as you air your dirty laundry as well and say, here's where your challenges are and here's what you're doing about them, please also celebrate the successes, because these are challenging times and we need inspiration. We need to know that these things are possible. Yeah.
Thanks. Any other takers on that question? Rachel?
Yeah, I find this stuff fascinating, because I think that the formalising of sustainability training and the professionalising of it is really good on one hand, but also every time we start to formalise and professionalise things, it's following the movement. So there's a lag effect. So if you think about the scale of the challenge that we're in now, we really do need, which is why I love the diversity conversation, we really do need a whole new way of thinking about these issues that we're at, because they're all interrelated. And the more specific we get, like we channel down an issue on climate, for example, and we stop thinking sideways. So the points that Mike was making about inequality and points about nature, we get really specialist and we kind of lose the big picture. So I think there's a whole range of things that are happening. So I know Mike runs a lot of training, AUT do the formalised training, SBN has got more training than a bull can shit. There is a lot of training out there, and it's not that there isn't training opportunities. People are not investing in the training, and it's not expensive to learn on the job in your career. And we do a lot of that. Our leadership course often has people who are not the sustainability professional in them. We get people who are in the marketing space. We get people who are in the investor space. They are right across the board wanting to understand what is sustainability and what's my role in what's the role I play here. But also really importantly, Rod, there's a whole new set of skills that we haven't even formalised. And that's particularly thinking about restoration or regenerative thinking. So if you think about what Māori bring, for example, in that restorative, regenerative space, the way that Māori tend to think is as a we and together, but also from place and from the natural environment. So weaving all those things together creates a whole new skill set that there is no formal training for. So some of the work that we're doing is in the Puhinui catchment with local Māori rangatahi, helping us understand what way we would do this differently, and then how do we bring our Western thinking to start to formalise some of that, do micro credentials and help these people into new career spaces. But then we have to make sure that the organisations that are willing to employ these young people are adapting so that they're willing to take these new skill sets on properly and not try and fit these new skill sets into boxes that are out of date. So I think this is a constantly evolving journey. It goes from the informal learning, new skill sets, to the formal learning. And we kind of need to embrace them all, is my thinking there. Finally, in terms of the heroes question, every year we run awards. Rod, you know them well. They're a really good way of telling that inspiring story right across a whole lot of sectors. And it's, as Mike said, exceptionally important that we tell those in these kind of times. So looking for the win-win-win across the work that you do is really important now. Addressing climate, addressing nature, addressing inequality, all of those things, we can do them together and not in these separate parts. So yeah, we just can't lose it now that we're going into what we keep saying is this recession. We've got to keep focused.
Absolutely. Now, I've got a couple of questions about the way job openings are presented in terms of recruitment. And one of the questions comes back to a cultural one here that you touched on, Rachel, is the question on ethnic diversity. Is the lack of Maori and Pacifica people showing in the report partly due to the way we characterize job descriptions in the professions?
I'm happy to have a crack at that. I think there's a few things going on there. One is organisational culture. And so even before the job descriptions come out, if you think differently from everyone else in your organisation, you're going to be uncomfortable. So if you're joining any large organisation where you don't think you're going to fit, why would you even put your hand up? So it kind of doesn't matter if the job description is right or wrong. It's really, am I going to fit in here, and I'm going to be honoured for who I am? And that's why I think we've got to come back for that cultural competency piece and start to really understand the value of diversity and being willing to change the way that we all think. You know, the me and greed culture, which is dominated, is totally out of date. We have to start thinking about the we and together and diversity is good, all of that stuff. And I was listening to something recently, Ron, I just have to share it. We've got more organisations having their targets for diversity in them. At the same time, we have these leaders challenging bicultural, the co-governance issues on a scale which I find really distressing. So we're seeing them in their businesses saying they care about these issues, but not hearing it from them as leaders in our community. And I think that's a real shame and a massive
Rod, would I be able to just back up what Rachel's just said? Because I think it's so important what you've just said, Rach. I think the culture element is so important. I often speak to companies about this. There's no point hiring somebody in who is diverse, as in not in the majority of employees, a single person. It's just not going to work. That person is going to feel completely alienated and dominated by the dominant culture in that organization. You need to be open to completely shifting the way in which you do your recruitment so that actually you can have a much more open approach to people who are diverse on a range of different metrics. And as Rach says, that's about being open to quite fundamental change. And we see success in that in the companies and organizations that are open to that. It happens quite rapidly, and it has a profound effect on just how diverse they are and therefore how attractive they are to a much greater, broader range of people. And on to the second point that Rachel just said before, I think this is super important, is that if we don't take action on this, then we are going to start to go backwards. And companies need to be consistent in their actions. If they're saying one thing over here with their sustainability hat on, and then they're doing something fundamentally different over here in terms of their public relations, their advocacy, or their or what they're doing in the rest of their business, they will be discovered. And that is greenwashing. That is greenwashing, saying one thing and doing something that's contrary to that. And so one of the things we're saying to our members is you need to be consistent in all of your actions and statements. Because if you just think that you can say this in one piece over here and then do exactly the opposite or undermine it on the other side, whether that's about Māori, or whether that's about climate, whatever it might be, that is greenwashing as well. So this is, I think, a really important area.
I just have one sentence because we're the largest Māori Pacific university, of course, in New Zealand. The general tendency is that they choose subjects where they know they're going to make a difference. So, we have no problem anymore with recruiting Māori into law. We did 10 years ago because it's so clear that they can now make a difference. So we need to start much earlier in high school to show, and again, that's where we need business and all of you to show how sustainability is making an enormous difference that will influence study choices. So turn up to these young people, rangitaha, and tell them how much difference your roles in sustainability make.
Yeah, fine, thank you. And there was just one other question back here about transparency, about job postings. And this reads, one of the easiest steps employers can take to address the gender and ethnicity pay gap is to advertise the salary band of the job when hiring. Now, New Zealand, the questioner says, is thoroughly behind in making that a requirement. And I'd love to hear from both SBC and SBN whether you're willing to make this a requirement for your member organisations to help change this.
I'm going to take that one back to my advisory board. I think it's a great idea.
Fine. Rach.
Well, I'm completely comfortable with it. I actually, you know, when I was young, which was a wee while ago, this grey hair is real, people had salary bands. You knew what, actually, they just had a job, what you were going to be paid. So that's a recent thing that we've taken that away. I've never really understood it. So it just makes sense to me that you would be transparent, but I know it's moved. So I'd be very supportive of just encouraging that movement back. One of many, many, many things that we need to change. I think Kate had a point she was trying to make before, Kate.
Oh, Kate.
Oh gosh, sorry, thanks, Rach. I was just going back to the last point about, I guess, seeing is believing, Marjo, and about, you know, I think a related topic is STEM careers, and obviously that's really important for us in the energy sector. And we've got a really successful program called Ngā Creating Pathways around our generation schemes to show exactly that, you know, to show rangatahi in the community and in high school pathways to apprenticeships, and spending time to get them familiar with all the different types of roles and opportunities, because we know 25% of our future workforce is going to be Māori, and we know that there's a massive shortage of STEM workforce now currently, and to solve the climate crisis and all these other crises that we've got facing us. And so if we don't address that, you know, we're not going to be able to do anything. So I think, you know, anyone who can kind of jump on board with those kind of programs, which are, I would call sustainability additional roles, you know, they're really, really important, and they're aligned to what we're all trying to achieve.
Rachel.
Kalinda's asking, where do you go to find out where all these trainings and learnings are? And Kalinda, I'm really sorry, there is not an integrated learning platform between all of the various training programs that are being run. That doesn't yet seem to exist, but it's a good challenge to the sector, Mike and Marjo. I think we can think about that. SBN does have a lot of training. It's open to anyone. You don't have to be part of our network. A lot of it's free. There's a shed load of resources. There really is no excuse for people not to upskill on budget constraints, because the learning is there. I know there's a lot of recorded learnings, SBC share, Aotearoa share them, and other organisations too. So there really is a lot of learning. I think the tricky thing is, at this point of time, there isn't the formal learning where you're getting your certificate at the end of it. We provide one for our leadership training, but that's not across all of our learning yet. Becky is listening to this from our team, so I hope she is working out how we're going to respond to it, Rod, because I think it's a bloody fine question and one worth responding to.
Thank you. And here's a question from somebody who's studying, and the question is, does the panel have any advice for new sustainability professionals that are currently studying? I'm not a young person, but I'm upskilling and doing a master's currently. So wondering if the panel has any advice for people transitioning into sustainability as opposed to new grads coming into the arena.
I can, I guess, take this one as a person working in an organisation, seeing lots of people with the same question. And I would say, you know, stick with your current career, and open your mind to what does sustainability mean when you think about your career and the links between your career and sustainability. So, for example, in our organisation, we have just put sustainability on the finance graduate rotation. So every finance grad that comes into Genesis is now spending 6 months with my team, which is fantastic. So they can take their learnings and then move on to all other parts of the business. But I think every single part of the organisation has a link to sustainability. So if you're in procurement, you can be thinking about you know, what does it mean to eradicate modern slavery? What does it mean to uphold human and Indigenous rights? How can you purchase all of your goods and services with a sustainability lens, whether environmental or social sustainability? If you're a risk professional, what does it mean to think about climate risk in a changing world, and how to adapt depending on obviously the sector that you're in? I think that's where we need people to think, rather than transitioning their career fully into becoming a sustainability person. I think about your role and what does it mean to be sustainable in your role, because that's the only way we're going to really shift the dial.
Yes, thank you. Any additional comments on that?
Just one, that the moment you enter sustainability, you are part of a network, of a web that can carry you. And so, you know, join SBC if your organization, join SBN, join junior events in that area. Doesn't matter at what stage of life you are, because it's junior being learning about sustainability rather than your age. But feel carried. You can be carried. We do exchange, we do connect, and so join. You know, I do feel we're still trying to do it on our own too much. It's too hard to do it by yourself, to be honest. And also, I worry if I say that people learn on the job and they learn in their own organization, because when you talked about heroes, Rod, we have a hero almost in every area, but not in all areas. So businesses and people need to learn from each other. Your business might be really good in procurement, but not in the reporting side yet. So yeah, join those networks and talk to the people in those areas that your organization not yet so strong in, and learn.
And I'd add to that and say that, you know, I just want to shout out to SBC and SBN. You know, I had a memory pop up on my phone 10 years ago at the first Sustainable Business Council Leadership Development course. So it's been going that long, and I was part of it, along with a number of people I can see who are attendees on this call. And I've been lucky enough to send colleagues from all parts of the business on both the SBN and SBC courses. And I think, that's another kind of aim of the Octopus strategy is getting people from across the business upskilled and networking them, as you say, Marjo, making sure that they feel held and can create relationships where they can ask, because we're all learning. It's moving so fast that we need to just be, really adaptive and keep soaking up the information.
Thank you.
Rod, can I come in on this one as well, just to say, I can't agree more than what Kate's just said. Building on your own professional skills is where we're going to need people. We're going to need a lot of those specialists and those adjacent roles. And if I just think about something like at the moment, accountants and auditors, we are screaming out for auditors who have deep climate knowledge. Because if you think about all of these companies, they're going to be calling on that profession to be able to not just go and do the task, but to set up what the systems that are required in a sensible way that is not going to drown the sector when they're reporting on climate-related risk. And if you think that's complicated, think about what happens when TNFD gets announced later this year, and we're talking about nature. And so people who are in those professions, particularly auditors and accountants and finance experts who have a deep understanding of climate and more broadly of sustainability, are going to be critical. I was asked the other day, a friend's daughter is just starting a finance degree, and she said to me, what would you say to her? I said, whatever she does, she has to understand sustainability. She has to understand sustainable finance, because that's where her career is going to go. I also got asked a question just online here, and my apologies. I tried to answer it online and I couldn't. It just says, in terms of my comments around SBC prioritising capability building, is this for SBC employees or for member organisations too? It's for both. But to Rachel's point, it's something that we want to do collaboratively with SBN and with AUT and others, because we recognise that there's a whole lot of really great stuff happening out there already. Why would we duplicate it? What we're much better to do is partner with others, either point and say, hey, there's something really good happening already, or where there's a gap, work with others to fill that gap. What we don't need is a whole lot of duplication. We really need some collaboration in this space.
Fine.
Can I just have one last final comment, because this is all beautiful, but we are not doing the scale and pace of change that we need. So the fact that this is formalising is great, but the challenge is immense. We need systems thinking, new partnerships, And we really need to have new business models, new ways of making money. The old ways of making money are tired and not working for us anymore. So do not underestimate the new grey matter that's required to think about the way that we do business in a genuinely sustainable, regenerative future. It's not what we're doing today.
Absolutely. And I'm very abruptly going to have to end our fabulous discussion. I'm sorry to cut it off. First of all, great thank you to Mike and Rachel and Marjo for your comments now and your organization's support, SBC, SBN and AUT, for the wonderful work that Oxygen's done. And so thank you to Sarah and her Oxygen colleagues for this report. I urge all of you online to read the report and tell lots of people about it and get other people to read it. Thank you also to Kate for your comments, and lovely that a memory from 10 years ago popped up on your phone to remind you of progress. But I'm going to close by turning a question into an injunction. And the question was, are we quite a conservative society? I'd say the answer is yes. And if so, does that inhibit sustainability work? And I would say yes. So my enjoinder to you all is go out there, be bold, be brave, and have a great deal of fun and satisfaction of doing it. So thank you for joining us all today, and I wish you all the best in your work. And here's a karakia to close.
Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapu nui, kia wātea, kia mama te nako, te tinana te wairua ki te ara tangata, koia rā e rongo, whakairihia ake ki runga, kia tina, tina, hui e, tae ki e.